Thanks for the inspiration, sis, Michael laughed, raising his champagne glass at his startup's launch party. Who knew your little science project could turn into something so valuable? I stood in the corner of the lavish venue, watching my brother celebrate the successful launch of NanoClean Technologies, a company built entirely on my research, my innovation, my dream. The same technology I'd spent 3 years developing in my garage lab while working full-time as a chemical engineer. Always the modest one, aren't you, Alice? He continued, his voice carrying across the room. Still working in that corporate lab while your big brother turns your ideas into gold. I'm Alice Chen, 34, and until 6 months ago, I'd trusted my brother with everything, including the revolutionary nanotech cleaning solution I'd developed. What I hadn't told him was that I'd already filed for a patent, long before he'd borrowed my research notes and prototype. To innovation, Michael called out to the crowd of investors and tech journalists, and to family inspiration. The irony of his words made me smile slightly. Family inspiration indeed. He had no idea what was coming. I thought back to that day 6 months ago, when I'd excitedly shown Michael my breakthrough. We'd always been close, despite his tendency to take credit for others' work, a habit that had started in childhood when he'd claim my science fair projects as joint efforts. This is incredible, Alice, he'd said, examining the clear liquid that could break down industrial pollutants at the molecular level. Have you thought about commercializing it? I'm working on a business plan, I'd told him, just need to finalize some testing and dash. You should let me help, he'd interrupted. I've got connections in the startup world, we could do this together. I'd hesitated. Michael had always been the charismatic one, the natural salesman, but he'd also always been quick to take shortcuts, to prioritize profit over perfection. Let me think about it, I'd said. 2 weeks later, he'd announced the formation of NanoClean Technologies, using my research, my formulas, my innovation. When I'd confronted him, he'd been dismissive. Come on, sis, you know you would have just sat on this forever, running more tests, seeking more validation. The market waits for no one. That research wasn't finished, I'd protested. The formula needs refinement for certain applications. You can't just dash. Already did, he'd grinned. Got 3 major investors lined up. This is happening, Alice, you should be thanking me. I'm making your little experiment into something real. Now, 6 months later, I watched as he worked the room at his launch party, accepting congratulations and fielding questions about his breakthrough technology, the same technology that bore my signature on a patent application filed 8 months before he'd ever seen it. My phone buzzed, a message from my patent attorney, everything's in place, just say when. I typed back a simple not yet and slipped my phone back into my pocket. Timing was everything, and Michael had just announced their plans to go public in 3 months. The IPO would be his crowning achievement, and his ultimate undoing. Alice, Michael's voice boomed as he spotted me trying to leave. Come here, sis, tell everyone about how you helped with the early research. Helped, as if my years of work were just a minor contribution to his genius. I plastered on a polite smile and walked over. Oh, I just did some preliminary work, I said carefully. Michael's the one who really developed it into something marketable. He beamed, missing the edge in my voice. Always so modest, but that's my sister, happiest in her little lab, leaving the big business decisions to those who understand the market. The investors laughed appreciatively, and I saw several of them give me condescending looks. Just another female scientist who didn't understand business, if they only knew. Over the next 3 months, I watched as NanoClean Technologies grew rapidly. Michael appeared in technology magazines, gave TED Talks about his innovation, and attracted more investors with promises of revolutionary environmental cleanup solutions. But I also noticed something else, problems with the formula. Without my complete research, without understanding the subtle refinements needed for different applications, the technology wasn't performing as consistently as it should. My phone began filling with messages from former colleagues in the environmental cleanup industry. Something's off with the NanoClean solution, inconsistent results. Had to abort a cleanup operation, chemical reaction wasn't stable. Is this really your work, Alice? Doesn't seem up to your standards. I saved every message, every report, every piece of evidence showing that Michael's rushed commercialization was leading to problems, not catastrophic failures. I'd built the basic formula too well for that, but enough issues to raise serious concerns. 2 weeks before the scheduled IPO, I received an unexpected visitor at my corporate lab. Dr. James Morrison, my former PhD advisor and one of the most respected names in nanotechnology. Alice, He said gravely, "We need to talk about NanoClean." I gestured for him to sit, already guessing what was coming. "I've been asked to join their scientific advisory board," he continued. "Michael approached me personally, but something feels off about the technology, the published specifications. They're similar to the work you were doing in my lab years ago." I smiled slightly. "Very similar, aren't they?" James studied me carefully. "Alice, did you file a patent 8 months before Michael ever saw the technology? Document every step of my research with witnessed lab notes? Have a complete version of the formula that actually works properly?" "Yes to all of the above." He sat back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You've been waiting, haven't you?" Letting him dig himself deeper. "The IPO is in 2 weeks," I confirmed. "Would you like to help me make it memorable?" The day of NanoClean's IPO dawned bright and clear. The Nasdaq market site was packed with investors, media, and technology industry figures. Michael stood at the podium, impeccably dressed, preparing to ring the opening bell that would mark his company's public trading debut. "Today marks a new chapter in environmental technology," he began his speech. "NanoClean Technologies represents a breakthrough that will revolutionize how we clean up industrial pollution." I stood at the back of the room, dressed in a sharp business suit, holding a folder containing documents that would indeed revolutionize things, just not in the way Michael expected. "And none of this would be possible without the support of our incredible team," Michael continued, "our visionary investors, and of course, my sister Alice, whose early research helped inspire this innovation." That was my cue. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the marble floor as I made my way to the front of the room. "Actually, Michael," I said clearly, my voice carrying in the suddenly silent room, "I think it's time we clarified exactly whose innovation this is." He faltered slightly but maintained his smile. "Alice, this isn't the time for dash. I filed for a patent 8 months before you took my research," I continued, opening my folder. "The complete formula, with all the refinements and stability protocols you've been struggling to replicate. Would you like to see it?" The room erupted in murmurs. Investors began shifting uncomfortably in their seats. "Dr. Morrison," I called out, "would you please join me?" James stood from his seat in the front row, holding his own folder. "As a member of NanoClean's scientific advisory board, I've reviewed both the technology currently being used by the company and MS. Chen's original patent application. They are substantially the same innovation, but MS. Chen's version includes critical elements that explain the performance issues we've been seeing in field applications." Michael's face had gone pale. "This is ridiculous. We have our own patents filed 6 months after mine," I cut in, "and missing key components that make the technology stable across different applications, components that are clearly detailed in my patent, which was just approved last week." The murmurs grew louder. I saw several investors pulling out their phones, presumably checking with their lawyers. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the room, "I'm not here to destroy NanoClean Technologies. I'm here to correct the record and claim what's rightfully mine. My attorney has prepared documentation showing that I am the original inventor and patent holder of this technology. Any use of this innovation without my authorization constitutes patent infringement." The Nasdaq officials were huddling together, clearly discussing whether to proceed with the IPO. Journalists were frantically taking notes. "Alice," Michael hissed, stepping away from the podium, "what are you doing? We're family." "Yes, we are," I agreed, "which is why I trusted you with my research. A mistake I won't make again." One of the lead investors stood up. "Are you saying NanoClean doesn't have the right to use this technology?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," I confirmed, "though I'm open to licensing discussions with the company's legitimate representatives." "This is insane," Michael protested. "I developed this into a viable product. I built the company." "Built it on stolen intellectual property," James added. "As your scientific advisor, I have to inform the board that MS. Chen's patent is valid and comprehensive. NanoClean's current technology infringes on her rights." The next few hours were chaos. The IPO was suspended pending investigation. Investors huddled with lawyers. Journalists filed breaking stories about the dramatic revelation. By evening, NanoClean's board of directors had called an emergency meeting. I was invited to attend, while Michael was asked to wait outside. "Ms. Chen," the board chairman began, "this is an unprecedented situation. What exactly are you seeking?" I placed my terms on the table: majority ownership of NanoClean Technologies, complete control of the technology development, and a new executive structure that would remove Michael from any operational role. "And if we refuse?" one board member asked. Then I'll license my technology to your competitors, I said simply. I already have 3 interested parties. They didn't deliberate long. By midnight, papers were signed making me the majority owner and chief technology officer of NanoClean Technologies. Michael was offered a minor advisory role, a courtesy I extended purely for our parents' sake. When he found out, he was livid. "You've ruined everything," he shouted in the boardroom. "I made this company what it is." "No, Michael," I corrected him. "You took something that wasn't yours and tried to claim it as your own, just like you did with my science fair projects, my college research, my achievements. But this time, I was prepared. Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this," he threatened. I smiled sadly. "Actually, they already know. I showed them my patent application 8 months ago. They've been waiting to see how you'd handle this test of character, and you failed, again." The aftermath was both swift and comprehensive. Under my leadership, NanoClean Technologies underwent a complete restructuring. I brought in my own team of scientists to properly develop and refine the technology. Within 6 months, we had solved all the stability issues and begun successful deployments worldwide. Michael, stripped of his executive role and most of his shares, eventually left to pursue other opportunities. Our family dinners became awkward affairs, but our parents finally acknowledged that their son's charisma couldn't excuse his ethical failures. 1 year later, we did go public, properly this time. The IPO was a massive success, valued at 3 times what Michael had projected. As I rang the opening bell, I thought about the long journey from my garage lab to this moment. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "Congratulations, justice and science both served." I smiled, remembering all the times Michael had dismissed my excessive attention to detail, my insistence on proper documentation, my careful approach to development. Those same qualities had ultimately protected my innovation and secured my success. Later that evening, as I was leaving the office, I found a small package on my desk. Inside was a familiar ribbon, from my 8th grade science fair, the first project Michael had tried to claim as his own. A note from our mother accompanied it. "I found this while cleaning, thought it should be with its rightful owner. Love, Mom." I pinned the ribbon to my office wall, next to my patent certificate and IPO documentation, a reminder that success isn't just about having good ideas, it's about protecting them, developing them properly, and standing up for what's rightfully yours. Michael still occasionally appears in the tech media, usually promoting some new venture, but his credibility is forever tarnished. Investors do background checks now, looking specifically for original patents and verified research. As for me, I continue to lead NanoClean Technologies, focusing on what I do best: innovation, research, and proper development. Our technology is now used in environmental cleanup projects worldwide, saving ecosystems and improving lives. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what someone else built, it's about reclaiming what was yours all along and making it even better than they could have imagined. Last week, I received an unexpected email from Michael. "You were right about everything. I'm sorry. I haven't replied yet. Some things, like proper chemical reactions, need time to stabilize before you can trust the results." But I did add a new plaque to my office wall, right next to that old science fair ribbon. It reads, "Success is the best patent protection." Because sometimes the most valuable innovations aren't the ones you can put in a bottle. They're the lessons you learn about protecting what's yours and standing up for what's right. Even if it means standing up to family. Especially if it means standing up to family.